Hello, everyone. Welcome to Café New Canadians. I thank you all for joining us this evening for this special session wherein we will be discussing an international student's journey from becoming an international student to turning into a permanent resident in Canada. Now, Café New Canadians is a weekly virtual chat session wherein we discuss topics related to immigration, education, students, business, employment, you name it, and we cover it here on Café New Canadians. Café New Canadians is brought to you by New Canadians Media, a division of New Horizons Media. And New Canadians is a TV and web-based show. You can watch our show on Omni Television. Do connect with us on all of our social media platforms. And yes, you can get all of the resources and read in details all the material that we provide to you on our website. Like I mentioned earlier, we will be discussing an interesting topic. How can you tick mark all of the check boxes when you are an international student and preparing yourself to turn into a permanent resident in Canada? My name is Saini. I will be moderating this session, and I'm pleased to welcome our panel members for this session. And this is an exciting session wherein we are joined by people who were international students once and now they are permanent residents, and it'll be really interesting to see what their experiences were. And of course, we have an immigration lawyer with us who will be giving us expert advice. We are joined by Kofo Owolabi, Anirudh Sharma, Jin Kim. They were all international students and now permanent residents in Canada. And we have with us Parneet, Malhi, Rayat, an immigration lawyer. And we will soon be joined by Valentina Barros, who is an international student in the process of applying for permanent residency in Canada. Welcome each one of you. And before we dive deeper into this topic and get all of these insights, I would like to tell each one of you who has joined us for this session that if you have any questions, do send in your questions and we will definitely answer those questions. You know, this session is live on YouTube, and in the comments section in the YouTube, you can definitely leave your comments and your questions, or in the chat section, if you have tuned in through the Zoom, give us your questions. And without wasting any time, let's go straight into the discussion. And I would like to once again welcome all of our panel members. Welcome each one of you.
Great to be here.
Let's begin with a brief introduction, and then how about you tell us about your journey briefly, starting with you, Anirudh.
Oh yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me, Shaili. So I started off as an international student coming to Canada in 2019, April to be specific, and did my master's over here from Royal Roads at Victoria, and finally got my PR last month in August, which was great, of course. And the journey has been, of course, a few challenges, really interesting, but all in all, no complaints, and really thankful for the situation over here, I would say.
Well, first of all, congratulations to you for acquiring the permanent residency, but you mentioned challenges, and I will come back to that question of what are the challenges that you faced, but let's move on to the introduction session, and I would invite Kofo. Tell us something about yourself.
Thank you, Shaili. Hello, everyone. My name is Kofo. I currently run a business here, but originally, like most everyone here, I started as a student. I came here in 2003, and I started at high school. So unlike other people who might be starting in post-secondary, in more university or college, I started a lot younger. And then I became a PR in 2014. So I've pretty much gone through most of the education system here. It definitely has its ups and downs, especially if you're going to school. Hopefully we'll be able to talk about that. And and now it's great taking advantage of all the benefits there is when you become a PR eventually.
Nice. Jun, how about you?
Hi, my name is Jin. I am from South Korea. So I came to Canada in March 8th, 2010. It's funny, I remember, a lot of people remember their first date in Canada. I originally came to study English only, but I really liked Canada life, their culture, people. So I decided to aiming for PR. So 2017, after the ESL co-op program studying or work 3 years working, I got PR in 2017 October. And now I'm working as an information management specialist at Moa College, and I enjoy Canada life now.
Wonderful. And Parneet, coming to you, tell us something about yourself.
So hi everyone, my name's Parneet. I'm the Canadian immigration lawyer. I've been working in immigration since about 2008, 2009, but practicing as an immigration lawyer since January 2015. I worked downtown at a global immigration firm for a few years, and in about I would say January 2017, I branched out on my own, started my own immigration firm. And since then, I've been doing solely immigration, both personal immigration matters, like spousal sponsorships, visitor visas, study permits, et cetera, and a lot of corporate immigration matters, work permits, LMIAs, that sort of thing. I'm excited and honored to be a part of this panel and help shed some light to prospective and current international students and who are looking at settling permanently in Canada.
Absolutely. Well, we have people who have come to Canada and turned into permanent resident in different years. So that will definitely shed light on how things have changed. But without getting much technical, Parneet, if I can first come to you, and if you can, in the simplest terms possible, tell people how to prepare a checklist and to be able to check all of the boxes.
So the initial process obviously is to come here as a student. You need an acceptance letter. You need to be approved for a study permit. That obviously authorizes you to study in Canada. And in most cases, obviously there's going to be some times that differ because there's so many different unique processes. But the generic process would be you come here, you study, and then probably like most of you, you get your open work permit, which is called your postgraduate work permit, and you work in Canada for mostly about at least 1 year. And then you apply, or simultaneously in that year, you can set up a profile and apply for permanent residence under the express entry system. And that system is a point-based system that allocates points for different factors, including your age, your education level, your English level, and your work experience in Canada and abroad. And depending on how you score in the points, the government does draw a certain amount of points about once or twice a month. And if your number is drawn or higher, you will be issued an invitation to apply. Obviously, there are other processes to apply as well, but that's usually the most straightforward and the most common and the most recommended mostly for students to pursue permanent residence currently. As I'm sure maybe some of you have gone through different processes previously, but that is the current process and that is usually the recommended route.
All right, so things are pretty much laid out for everyone to go through. But Anirudh, if I can come to you, you mentioned challenges. What were those and how did you overcome those challenges?
The challenges basically are mostly, I would say, mental. So it's about being positive all the time, and because you never know, what kind of things might just pop up. Let's say, for example, COVID. No one really had predicted that, and that kind of gave a lot of people, negative vibes that, oh, what's going to happen 1 year down the line? Things might change. Things might get a little more cumbersome. And those are the things that you have to kind of keep aside when it comes to what the goal is, which is to, of course, get settled over here, get a PR, get a citizenship. and just keep on staying positive and just focus on what all things are in your control rather than something that's not in your control.
I think that's a good point you have highlighted there, and that is what we actually need in today's time and age, staying positive. Jim, I'll come to you. Okay, Jim, before I ask you the question, let me welcome Valentina Barros, who has joined us. And like I mentioned earlier in my introduction, that she is the fresh pass out from college and the person who is still in the process of applying for for permanent residency. Welcome, Valentina.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for welcoming me. Yes, I am fresh out of college and so excited to talk to you all about your journeys.
Thank you so much. And Jin, I would like to come to you now. And if you can tell us something about your journey so far, how challenging or how easy was it?
I don't think it's never easy for anyone. But if I say it's a challenge for me, when I applied PR, it was almost at the beginning of the express entry. So we, not like no us, but even immigration lawyers, they didn't have enough information. What is acceptable, what is not acceptable in terms of as a point system. So it was very struggling, and you only have to keep trying, submitting, and if it's accepted or not, it all depends on the immigration officers, right? So I actually applied first time. I got an invitation, express entry invitation around end of 2016. So I submitted all the documents, my police check, my certificate, graduation certificates, transcript and everything. And I got declined because I was missing something. And the problem is they don't give you a specific information, what you are like in terms of the submission, what you did wrong. So you kind of have to figure it yourself. You have to read the website again and make sure you prepare everything by yourself. And I resubmitted again, and fortunately they accepted. And because of express entry, as Parneet said, it's very fast once you get accepted. So it takes only 3 months after I resubmitting everything and I got PR. But again, as Anirudh said, it's very mentally challenging. I am mostly stable in mental person, but because the immigration is so random sometimes, like anything could happen, just like a nature disaster. Like early this year, they invited people who got score as low as 75 or something. It's good, but it could happen the other way too. You know, they usually invite people who have 400 or 300 something, but maybe one day they invite 600 and you are expecting to get an invitation, but you can't because it's random. There's nothing guaranteed until you actually get the PR. So that's really challenging.
All right, so that's a fairly recent experience of immigration being random. Kofo, I saw you smiling and nodding. Likewise, Anirudh, when it came to the point of the entire process being a bit of mentally exhausting. Kofo, you have been here since 2003, you mentioned.
Yes.
You have seen a lot, you have experienced a lot. What do you have to share to what things were to what they are now?
I would agree with both Jin and Anirudh about the mental aspect of it, because once you make the decision that you want to settle here in Canada, then you know it's an aspiration. You are really hoping you've enjoyed what it's like to live here, and now your desire is that you get to stay here, and so it's like a dream for you that you're trying to achieve. And so it's like going through the process and having, you know, all kinds of things come up along the way, basically attacking your dream. Yes, that definitely takes you through a roller coaster. I laugh just because we are all kind of like different years and different cohorts. So, you know, Jin was talking about starting his application in 2016. By that time, I had already gotten my PR. So in my time, express entry didn't exist. So all the timelines that these guys are talking about were totally different. PR took a lot longer. before you actually got, like, if I got my response in 3 months, I would be so happy. But we didn't have those privileges at the time when I was applying. So it was a quite different system. And Parneet can probably speak to this because she's probably seen the different stages. But at my time, the main classification for coming into Canada was called the Federal Skilled Class Worker, which is still an economic classification. So you still had to have the work experience. The work experience was really classified under like very strict buckets. So meaning that the kind of job you did had to fall into those buckets. So, you know, what you went to school for became super important because you needed a job kind of for the experience piece of it. So those were the challenges that came with trying to be eligible to apply for PR. And then along the way, things started changing. So Canadian Experience class got introduced, and that was like an amazing thing because obviously if you were a student, it was great. But then again, there were still some other quirks to it. And like Jen, you know, you apply and something goes wrong. And this is the mental piece. It's, if there's even any advice I give anybody, be very calm, take a breath, maybe have a day to vent and be angry, but then come back and retry, because it does not mean that it's the end of the road. So yeah, you look at it and sometimes things come, like in my case, my work permit actually expired, which gave me a lot of anxiety while it was in this process. So trying to obtain another work permit to maintain my status while still trying to get into this journey was quite challenging. But I think getting really good help. And for those who are watching, you know, Parneet is a resource for that. Having somebody who has immigration experience helped a lot in my case because eventually I did need a lawyer. But yeah, it worked out. But each stage is very different. But it's just keeping the course. It's quite simple. And actually, to what Jen said, you know, it's not like it's a lottery. It's not random. It's more like you're competing with the rest of the country. That's why it feels like it's random.
Right. So going by what all three of you shared with us, and because you have been here in different times, the process definitely has streamlined. But Parneet, the randomness or that point of you feeling that you're competing with the rest of the country, how does one address that? How can that be addressed?
So you're not only competing with the rest of the country, sometimes you're competing with the whole world. The point system, obviously, you know, it caters to certain individuals. Like Kofo said, you know, before it was just the federal skilled worker, and then it became the Canadian experience class. Even then they had limitations, but now they've kind of tried to make it more broad, more catered. But again, it all depends on how much points you have and obviously your best option. What I always tell, you know, students especially is, you know, make sure you do consult somebody, whether you do the application yourself or you're going through a legal representative. Make sure you consult someone and then get a second opinion if you have to. Make sure your, you know, resource is reputable, because unfortunately, there's a lot of fraudulent applications or fraudulent services that are also provided. And in my course of working, I've seen so many students in really, you know, unfortunate circumstances because, you know, they've trusted the wrong representative, or they've been misled. So, you know, do your research, make sure that you're consulting somebody, and get a second opinion if you have to. But also, you know, make sure whoever you're consulting is reputable. And, you know, the Canadian government website is also very helpful. IRCC website. There's always, you know, generic information on there. And I encourage everyone, obviously, you know, read up on it and then consult somebody. So.
Absolutely. The correct guidance is much needed. And with this ongoing pandemic, things have definitely been hit hard. And Valentina, if I can come to you, because you are currently in the process of applying for permanent residency, how has your experience been so far?
As has been mentioned before, it has brought me a little bit of anxiety, the whole process of getting from being a student to finishing college and then eventually getting a job in my field, and also, and on top of that, applying to work permit and like my status in Canada, or like what it was also, and also deciding if I want to stay in Canada or not, which I eventually became to terms that I want to. And now that they opened the express entry program in I believe in April last year or this year, I don't remember. I was really excited and got all my papers like in check to apply, and like the speed of the process in a way. And it filled up in like in a day or even less than a day, which it gave me getting the papers and doing all the process, even though it was kind of a lottery because of we didn't know how much it would fill out. And I say we because my family's here and they have been helping me so much with the process. We didn't know how fast it would fill up, and when it did, it got me a little bit of anxious, thinking that that was the only way to stay here. But then I applied for my work permit, and then it's like, oh, that's not the only way. There's another way, but because of how important it was to me and how much it would benefit me, that's why I got so scared of losing it. It wasn't really losing it, it's just waiting a little bit longer.
Okay, and the wait can get exhausting sometimes. Anirudh, if I can ask you, because you recently got your permanent residency, was there any delay because of the COVID-19?
There wasn't any delay in my case, to be honest. I applied in May and actually got my PR in August. So it took like 3 months for me, which was really crazy and exciting at the same time. And that was, I would say, like once in a lifetime kind of a chance for me, especially because I hadn't really anticipated that I'd get a chance like PR to PR to apply for a TR to PR kind of program, which I don't think they've ever done that in the past. But they did this time just to kind of get more applications. And I wasn't really even thinking about applying for it because I was going for the CEC program. But I did so and it clicked. So no delays over here.
That's wonderful to know. But Parneet, if I can get your response to this, because people out there do have this concern that there is no clarity of the timeline as to there are people who applied after me and they have received their permanent residency while I'm still waiting. Why is that?
So, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of applications and we get these questions a lot. You know, my friend got his permanent residence already. We applied at the same time. That's obviously outside of anyone's control. IRCC assesses, it goes to different officers, and obviously processes at different timelines. Like Anirudh, a lot of recent applications that went in around May when there was, lower draws, they were issued permanent residence within a few months. We submitted some in March that were approved in May. I've never seen them ever process that fast. So those were individuals that were lucky. And then we had some that were stuck in the system since 2020 and we still don't have an answer for. So it's hard to say. I mean, those are matters that have been brought up to IRCC to see, why there is a delay. But for the most part, express entry does process in a normal world between 6 to 8 months. Usually 6 months. 6 months is what they had originally stated, but obviously, with processing, it can take up to 8. In COVID, I will say that they have tried to accelerate the processing, like Anirudh said, and like Valentina had touched on. The TR to PR pathways was a one-time open up process to facilitate PR for students and to, for individuals that are working in lower skilled positions. So they are trying to do what they can to assist. It's just processing, unfortunately, especially with the flux of applications they've had in express entry in order to try to accommodate students. It's just been significant. So from what we've been told, they're doing whatever they can to pump them out. Sometimes you're just extra lucky and you get processed in a few months, and sometimes it takes the full 6 to 8 months, and sometimes, unfortunately, a little bit longer.
Right, and here's hoping everybody gets extra lucky.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jen, you mentioned that there was some wrong information given to you, and that you had to refill your application. What was that time like? And here, I would also want to highlight the fact of the fraudulent practices that Parneet also highlighted. Was there ever a chance that you were misled by someone else? How did you kind of, kept yourself away from it? And is there a tip from your side to all of the people who are watching us right now?
So unfortunately, I think I got a good lawyer, so he led me quite well. But I have a person who actually had a big trouble because they were listening from just rumors around their people. So this person, like 10 years ago, like 2010, when I first came to Canada, he got PR by getting married with his friend, not a girlfriend, but friend. So they kind of make up, they are getting married, they're living together, so they make up documents and stuff. And they got PR, so there was no problem. But after 10 years, all the years passed, immigration called them and we found that you are doing wrong. And he actually kicked out. So that kind of reminds me that you have to do everything perfect and trusted. Whatever you do, don't try to bypass the normal way. You can, it's very hectic, right? It's very attractive sometimes, because otherwise you have to wait 2 years, 3 years or something longer. But if you are not doing something right, they can find it out and you can lose everything. Like you can lose your career, your reputation, your house. I don't think you're losing house, but you can come back to Canada again for a while. So it's really important that you try to make it, or everything is trusted and honest when you apply PR and in the PR process.
Absolutely. And like Parneet mentioned, that it's always a good idea to have a second opinion. But Kofo, like you came here when you were very young. And throughout your journey, and not just yours, I mean, a lot of people who come here as students, we are so engrossed in getting our degree, and then you have to make a career also. So there are too many things going on. And then there is this big dream of getting the permanent residency. And at that point, there is this anxiety as well. So a lot is going on. At that point, how do you actually make out, or the correct route we know, but the enticing schemes that are being advertised everywhere, how do you understand the difference between the two? And it's a fine balance because there are alternate routes as well.
Right. Just like Parneet said, is really doing your research, one, is absolutely vital, but I think it's also using common sense stuff. Think of it like when you are checking your email. You see some weird looking email address that you've never heard from, or sender, or when you hover your mouse over it, you see like the email address itself is written weird. I think those are the kinds of instincts that you should just like trust your gut and apply that in this process. So, when people, first of all, never go by hearsay. The IRCC website is as gold standard as it gets. Like, it does not lie. It's black and white. It's very clear and it's very easy to read. So I always recommend people start from there, because if you have any questions whatsoever, that's where, even if you go to a lawyer like Parneet, for example, they're usually going to start from there, and then they would help you figure out those things. So I would say, number one, start from there. And then number two, when it comes to any of these other options, it's just never go by what somebody said. Even if somebody said something, ask them, where did they get it from? And go double check yourself. With websites and schemes out there that are telling people, oh, I can do this for you for this much. If it sounds too good to be true, it's just not true. You want to make sure that you check their websites and make sure that they do have the right certifications, because there is licensing required here in Canada to advise people on immigration. There's laws around those things. So all of those, like the legit people, I have all of those credentials. So you want to go with those people. And most of the time, when people are saying, oh, it's so cheap, chances are it's probably a scam. Because a real immigration professional, whether they're the immigration consultant or an immigration lawyer, they would charge some fee, but at least it's, when you compare, like how Parneet was saying, get a second opinion, get a third opinion. When you compare, you would start seeing that the good fruit and the good people are around the same level, and then everybody else is out there, and it's kind of like on the wayside. And then my only other advice I always tell people is just, at the end of the day, it's not like it's a right. This is like a privilege that we get. So just exercise patience, because like others were saying, it does take some time. Anirudh was very lucky with his 3 months, but sometimes the changes might not even be things like COVID. It could be like the law changes, like, for example, I know there are people all over the world watching right now, but we do have elections coming up here in Canada. And once elections happen, there's a new leader that could change the immigration minister, that could change all the laws. So, and that could affect your application. It definitely affected me, my own process. So those things too are there. And it's just like, you just keep your head down, keep with the IRCC website, and just make sure you're keeping up to date with what they say.
Right, and talking about the journey from being an international student to a permanent resident is quite an experience in itself. But you mentioned COVID-19, Kofo, and because of COVID-19, a lot of international students, although they have the status of international students, but they might not be here in Canada because of several reasons. So Parneet, if I can come to you for this one. When they apply after their degree, when they apply for permanent residency, because they're not here physically, how is it going to change their process? Is it going to affect them being not here?
So it's still, I mean, there's a lot of it still up in the air. It has been brought up to IRCC, and they are working to see the best option. There are certain exceptions. Obviously, some individuals who were approved study permits from abroad that never made it here, but still were studying abroad at a Canadian institute are still being eligible for the postgraduate work permit. So there are certain exceptions. Obviously, I think IRCC as a whole and everybody is going to have to work their way through a lot of these very sticky scenarios. But I mean, we'll have to see as it comes. I think right now they're just trying to obviously see, they're working on the postgraduate work permits for individuals who were studying abroad or who were approved. And there's certain requirements that obviously have to be met for each of those scenarios. And then obviously that'll go into permanent residence. Will it count? Will their points be allocated? That sort of thing. So I think everything's just a work in progress for now. We have, there's an Immigration Lawyers Association that obviously works, meets with IRCC quite often to work through some of the situations we come across and scenarios. So hopefully, you know, as time goes, they will iron out the details. But yeah, I guess it's more of a, you know, wait and see for now.
All right, because this was a concern that was brought up by some of the students who applied and who were to come to Canada to study in the universities, but they couldn't because of the travel restriction. So
yep. So there are certain,
right.
Yeah, there are certain, requirements. Obviously, if they've applied by a certain date, approved by a certain date, but still couldn't attend, they will be eligible for certain things. They have highlighted that on the IRCC website, but I do encourage them, obviously, to consult with a legal representative, because obviously we are sometimes the first ones to know of potential, changes to come. But there are, they are aware of the scenario, and it is becoming quite common. So we'll see how to navigate through it.
All right, Valentina, if I can come to you, because of COVID-19, did you face any delayed response from IRCC in you getting your process done?
I don't remember exactly how much the processing was, but when I applied for my work permit, it took from May until mid-August to process, which was a little bit like, it was scary, but at the same time I was okay, because I was advised that pretty quick from IRCC that I could work while I waited, which was a little bit calming, because I could work. I just didn't have the permit yet. But it took those 3 months, and I think because of COVID, I heard, as always, one of my friends, she said, "Oh, I already got my permit." I'm like, "I haven't." That's so, weird. But it's those things that Parneet said, that they take different times with different people. It's not like they take. It's not like they have it as a first come first serve, I believe. So I wasn't worried about it, because I knew eventually I would get my response. It would just take a little longer. But yeah, that's how the process went so far.
All right, scary, mentally stressful, exhausting. These are the words that you all have been using in your answers. So if each one of you can share, what is it, why during this process you must have felt somewhere that they can do away with this? Was there ever a point in that journey where you felt, well, you know what, we are in 2021, we can do away with this thing, we don't need it? Anirudh, if I can start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Do away as in, I'm sorry, could you just elaborate it a bit?
Sure. So in terms of filing the papers, in terms of going through the entire process, do you think it could be expedited in certain ways?
Not expedited, I would say, but I would actually like to step back a bit and say that it's not always about the exhausting journey or the negativity or the mental strain. It is quite positive as well, because I know a whole lot of people are watching right now and don't want to give them the negative idea. Once you are in the country, and once you are in the system, I would say, you've started the process. Things would happen eventually. It might not happen tomorrow or the next month or the next year, but it'll happen eventually. So the only thing that we got to do is that just keep on following the process. I would like to take one point from what Jin said: be very honest and be very transparent about whatever you are filling out in your forms and whatever you are putting out there when you're in the process. And yeah, no one would be able to stop you. Like, if one thing doesn't work out, like from taking something from my example, if this PR to PR pathway wouldn't have worked out, I knew I could go ahead and go for the CEC program. If that wouldn't have worked out, I could have gone for the PNP program. There are number of different options or worst case scenarios that you can always have in your mind, and that way you could be calm throughout the process and just keep on going.
All right, so having a plan B is always a good idea, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and that also helps you be calm and composed, that, yeah, things will happen. I'm already in the country. What's the worst that could happen? I could apply for a study permit extension or a work permit extension, and then I would get some more time to look at the process of the PR or how to move forward. So there's no way that someone would actually tell you to leave the country if you have been following all the steps that they have on the website.
Absolutely. So do your research, follow all of the steps, and have some patience. Things will turn your way. All right.
Absolutely.
Then, if you can add on to that, what do you have to say? Having a plan B, or do you have another point?
Sorry, did you call me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I totally agree with Anirudh. Especially I want to highlight the plan B part, because the biggest mistake I made while I was doing PR is I thought if I don't get PR, I'm gonna die or I'm gonna cry all day forever, because I love this country so much, and I somehow fell into thinking that if I don't get PR, can I live happily, or can I be like what am I going to be, right? But it's not true. Right? I can go back to my country. My parents are there. I'll be as much happier as I am here. But when you are focusing too much on one thing, that you are not thinking the other way around, so you it's hard. It's hard to see the other way. But always make a plan B, because the plan B is not as bad as plan A. So do that. The other advice I can give is always start PR application or preparation the earliest, because that changes a lot. So another mistake I made a lot of mistake. Another mistake I made is I didn't really thinking to stay in Canada for longer. As I said, I came to study English only, and I was going to go back home. But it was really difficult for me to get a PR in Ontario, because I couldn't get Ontario nominee program because I don't have university degree. But I know some other provinces, they take college degrees or any other thing. So if I knew that earlier before I came to Canada, I would choose different province. I can go there, I can get PR earlier, and I can move anywhere I want. So always start researching earlier, prepare earlier, bring whatever documents from your country if you can. For example, police check is really difficult to get it in the middle of your application process. So it's always good to have it, but there's expiry date like 6 months, so you have to be careful to that too. But yeah, the last thing I'll make it quick is a lot of my friends who got PR somehow lose their passion in their life after getting a PR, because they study so hard, they work so hard to get the PR, and only focusing on PR. And after they got PR, they don't know what to do. They said, I don't have to work hard anymore, because I got PR, so I can stay in Canada as much as I can. I don't have to study hard anymore. What am I going to do, right? So always, I know it's kind of not necessary to do that before PR, but it's good. It's exciting plan, right? When you get a PR, okay, maybe I can buy a house in this small city, quiet place, very nice people around, or I can study university and I can get a OSAP, which is very helpful in terms of financially. And I went to McMaster University because of that. Or you can get a different job when you couldn't get it when you're in a work permit or something. So always take some time to have a happy thinking after you get a PR, and make a plan on that too.
That's an interesting point you highlighted, and I'm so glad you mentioned it, because we have Kofo here, who came here as an international student, got her permanent residency, is a business owner now. What a phenomenal journey you've had so far. What are your tips to the people who are watching this right now?
Thanks. I think I wrote notes here just to summarize what everybody said. But when you were listing all the challenges, I'm like, oh my God, Shaili is making it sound like this is super hard. So I just want to tell everybody out there who's watching that this is very doable. And it's very possible. Think of it like the college degree you're coming to get here, like the university degree you're coming to get here. It's kind of like that. Like, when you come to school, you're going to study, there's going to be some hard tests. But you can do the tests, right? And you can pass them. So it's not something that you absolutely cannot do. And honestly, Canada is such a great country to live in. This is the reason why we stick it out. And if we have to get a police check, we get a police check. And if we have to wait another year, we wait another year to get it. because it's a great place to be in. Jen and I happen to live in the same city, in Hamilton, Ontario, and it's a great place to live. It's smaller than some of the big cities like Toronto or Vancouver that some of you might know. But it's a really enjoyable place. You can have friends and really kind of build a family for those of you who are older. So my kind of summary would be, one, this is very doable. When you are here, you do have an advantage. You definitely have an advantage because you are no longer outside the country, you're now in the country. So that gives you that leg up compared to like somebody who might be applying outside. Don't lie, ever. It's not worth it. I can tell you from my experience that that was the one thing that helped me throughout my entire journey. Even my lawyers got paid for just for that very reason, because I didn't lie. So just make sure that you're being as truthful as possible, and it works out every single time. Yeah, and be very flexible. Like Jen was saying, you know, this is one part of your entire life. As far as we all wake up tomorrow, you know, yay, we're going to continue. So PR is not going to be the end all and be all of your life. It's one part of your journey here in Canada. So, you know, while you're doing it, even if there's some parts that might be a little bit inconvenient, just be flexible with it. That's why it's good to consult a legal professional, like Parneet was saying, because the options that you might see in the news is not necessarily the option that is going to work for you. And that's what these guys can give you. They will give you the other options. I never thought in a million years I was going to be a business owner. I always knew I wanted to own a business. But then when I thought about that option was possible here in Canada, that's what gave me that boost to be like, okay, I'm going to finish and get my PR done. And then later on, I pursued citizenship.
Right. Well, you know what? Each one of you has shared your journey, and it is a humbling experience. And the purpose of getting the challenges highlighted is for each one of you who's watching this right now live, or who will be watching this later through the recorded session, to know that even though there are challenges, it is doable. We're all here. We have surpassed those challenges or situations. Let's call it situations. And we are here. We made it. So can you. But Parneet, there still must be a lot of questions that you must be getting from students intending to turn to permanent residents. And could you list just some of those questions which you think you don't need to worry about that?
Sure. So I get a lot of students that will tell me, well, you know, my employer or my friend told me to apply under the PNP or apply under this or that. But I like to remind them that, you know, obviously every case is unique. What somebody told you or what you may have heard or your friend did may not be the best process for you. So that's always something I like to start with, because a lot of times we'll have individuals come to us with a process already in mind, and they're set on doing it. But, you know, I can always, and many times I will tell them, like, you know, you're actually a great candidate for this process, and it'll be, you know, faster, easier. So I find a lot of students, you know, the panic from the transition from the work permit to permanent residence, the panic is real. I know, and I see it quite often. You know, people saying, "Oh, I need an LMIA, I need this, I need that," and we always tell them, you know, let's see if you really need it. You know, it's not. And for those of you who don't know, the LMIA is a job offer from a Canadian employer that boosts your points, but it isn't always needed. And so you know, we see a lot of. I see a lot of the panic, a lot of the similar situations that we had discussed. But yeah, so, you know, be open to different scenarios. I know, you know, people come across and say, you know, this is the process that's best for me. I've read up on it, but be open to other processes, because there might be something that's, you know, more catered to you. And as everyone saw this year, the government did implement a random, you know, new process that had never been implemented before. And they did a one-time, you know, TR to PR pathways application. first come, first served, and it filled up, very quickly. But that's something that nobody expected. So a lot of students, a lot of postgraduate work permit holders, who didn't think that they would be getting permanent residence soon or even, have enough points for it, were able to access it. So yeah, what everyone said, keep calm, don't worry, there's always an option. And that's, I guess, where lawyers come in, or legal representatives, speak to someone, because, there's always an option.
Absolutely. So staying flexible, knowing all of your options, and always taking an expert's advice. Valentina, and before I wrap up the session, I'll quickly come to you. Can you relate to some of what just Parneet mentioned, that a lot of students coming in with a set mindset that this is what I have read about, or this is what my friends are doing, and this is what I want to do?
Yes, I was going to mention before everything. I know I mentioned that it was a lot of anxiety, but it is doable. Like, especially for us students, we are very worried about not disappointing our families or the people that has helped us so far. When we come from being students, and we have that pressure on top of everything, but it's okay. We'll get there. It's a working process. It's just one day at a time kind of process. For everyone that's watching, it's not that it is scary. It is, of course, everything in life has a little bit of risk, but it's worth the risk. It's worth the chance, and it is very doable. And I do relate a lot to what Parneet mentioned, because I work as an office assistant at the international office at my school. And a lot of people came in with questions about work permits or study permits, and they were like, oh, my friend told me this, or my sister, my cousin, my roommate. And we're like, that's not how it works. This is how it works, or these are the other options that you have. But they're like, no, I want to do it this way. Like, it was kind of like their way or no way, and that's where our advisors came in, and like I just student advisors that we had, and like that were also like IRCC. I believe that they had a little bit of specialty there, so they helped them a lot with immigration. So that's, and then they realized that they had more options, and that, but sometimes they were a little stubborn. They were like, no, I want to do it that way. My roommate told me this and this and this, but it just takes a little while to convince them to that there's more options, so they calm down and see what's on the other side of the spectrum, I believe.
Absolutely. Well, Anirudh, aren't you floored and bombarded with questions as to how to get there? Because you are the lucky one.
I know I've got some friends, once again, the golden word, who are in the same bucket. And like Parmeet said, this is once in a blue moon kind of a thing that IRCC comes up with. I do, definitely consider myself as lucky. But then again, everyone knows that this is a process which was open to anyone and everyone. And people who have applied for it but they haven't really gotten the response yet do have that anxiety within. But once again, they also know that there are other things as well that they can tap into if this doesn't work out. And that's what they're going to do. So they are pretty calm and composed about it. So yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to people contacting me and asking me that what's the what was something that was different that I did. Actually, there was nothing. I just followed what the process was, what was written on the website, and got what I wanted to get.
Well, you did everything right. You said, I did nothing. I would rather say you did everything right. You followed the process.
Shaili, if I can even add to that, I think is this feeling that, especially now in this generation we're living in, we live in this instant world, right? You can just snap a selfie, post it on Instagram, put something on Facebook, voila, and you get everything you want. Unfortunately, immigration is not Instagram, so it's okay. Keep calm. It would happen as far as you follow their recipe and it works.
How nicely you've put it. Immigration is not Instagram. Things will happen when they are meant to happen. And before I wrap up this session, Parneet, if you can give some tips to everybody who's watching this right now and who is an international student, whether here in Canada or they are abroad, what are the things they should be doing and they should be avoiding?
I guess the first and foremost is obviously, educate yourself on the process, what it takes to come to Canada as a student, what you need, and consult somebody. Consult a legal representative that's a reputable representative because, obviously we've discussed there are a lot of, issues with fraud, but consult someone, see what the best options are for you. And then put yourself in a position for them. So, obviously get the acceptance letter, get the study permit, come to Canada, finish your program, apply for your postgraduate work permit. There are certain timeframes that has to be applied in. Obviously there's work requirements in order for you to qualify under the express entry program. But, don't delay it. I would say start early. Be ahead of the next step always. When you get when you're studying, know when you're going to be applying for your postgraduate work permit. When you're on your postgraduate work permit and you're employed or in the process of being employed, start consulting somebody about the express entry process or any process that's going to lead you to permanent residence, because there is a lot of document gathering. There's it is a lot. And yes, it gets processed fast and it gets submitted rather quickly, but there is a lot of documents that you'll have to get together, reference letters that maybe, it's going to take you quite some time to get. The government does give you, time frames to submit, but sometimes it's not enough. Obviously, as a working person or as a student, your plate might be already full. So, be knowledgeable about the process beforehand. Know what you're going into for your next step. Just be one step ahead. It's never too early to get a consultation, never too early to think about the next process. And, just know that obviously there's always going to be options to you. So, I know obviously panic kicks in and the stress levels of the IRCC wait times that we're seeing right now across the board, but it's there and the whole process, the whole point of IRCC and the process is to cater to students getting permanent residence. That's why they have the postgraduate work permit program. And that's why they have express entry Canadian experience classes and other, PNP processes to facilitate PR for students. So they want you to get it. It's just, just go through the motions and be knowledgeable about the processes.
Right. Jen, your final words?
Everything was so good to hear. I think if I can highlight one thing, don't worry, because the worry doesn't boost your application process. So don't waste your time to worry about what if I'm failed or something. Enjoy your day. Make the best of your day while you're in Canada, especially. Don't lose the opportunity. Enjoy the sceneries and natures. Just prepare everything beforehand. And when they contact you, okay, they said they need another application or another documents, and just to submit as soon as possible. Don't delay anything, because just like a recent express entry pool, they might invite just 100,000 people for free. You never know, right? Like Anirudh said, he's lucky, but I think you earned lucky because you applied earlier than that happens. So always start early, don't worry too much, and documentate everything.
Right. Kofo?
Just be prepared. Just like what everybody said, be prepared. You only get lucky the way Anirudh became because you're prepared. And the more prepared you are, the less anxiety you would have. And with the word about anxiety, it is going to happen. So it's okay. So when it happens, don't be worried about it. Get good friends, because friends help you along the way. outside of the legal representative, the next person that can help you on those days where you're just like, I hope they pick me and I hope, I make it. Your friends would definitely help you on those days because, it is what it is.
Absolutely. Anirudh, your advice?
Just the same thing, actually. I think everyone has covered all the major points, but I would just say one thing: be positive. That's all that we can do. Keep on working hard. Keep on. Sometimes it might feel like we're swimming against the tide, but it's not the case. It's just the motions. Be
Right.
positive.
Positive, absolutely. Valentina, what do you have to say?
I would say be patient. Check the resources at your school because you never know. The international office at most of the schools in Canada are pretty good. So if you're a student like I was and I still am, check those resources because they might be included in tuitions. So free stuff, essential. That is a good thing to check. And also get, as Kofo said, get good friends because I am lucky enough to have a very good support system with friends. So every time that I feel that I don't know if they're gonna pick me or I feel worried or I have anxiety, I just call my friends and we meet up and chat over coffee, food, and just like get distracted, get out. I'm also lucky enough to be living in Toronto, so I'm just a subway right away of the city. So whenever I feel like stressed or anxious, I just take the subway and just walk around or sit in front of the waterfront and just like enjoy the day and like, check the sceneries that Jane said, and just be positive, be patient, because it will happen. It's just not right now, just one day at a time, but it will.
Absolutely. Well, I thank each one of you for the experiences that you have shared and for sharing your time with us. Thank you, Anirudh, Kofo, Valentina, Jen, Parneet. Thank you so much for your time. And
My
with this,
pleasure.
it's a wrap on this session. But Café New Canadians is a weekly chat show wherein we bring new and interesting topics related to immigration, settlement, employment, business, education, and specifically regarding immigration. If you have questions on your mind and you want experts' advice, on your screens, you have Parneet Malhi Rayat's web address. You can certainly get in touch with her and get the right advice from her. We will see you next week on Café New Canadians, but don't forget to connect with us through our social media platforms and send in your feedback through the platforms. Also, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as our newsletter to stay updated with what is happening